In 1978, students of Rav Tzvi Kook came up to him and asked him a question about the Israeli flag. And they asked Rav Tzvi Kook if it was appropriate to give honor to the flag. Why? Because there's a law that says you can't mimic the non-Jews in terms of their behaviors and their customs. And so they asked Rav Tzvi, maybe this is what all the other nation states do. We shouldn't do this as a nation state, establishing ourselves in our country for the first time in 2,000 years. We shouldn't adopt that practice. So he came down super harsh on them. He said that it was an ignorant question. They had to do tshuva shlema, like not just tshuva shlema, mina akmumiyut hazot, from this crookedness, this crooked thinking. And so what? Obviously, he's saying we should give honor and treat it in a sacred way. What was his thinking? What was his logic behind that? So they uncovered, this letter of his was uncovered not too long ago from manuscript and was published. And I'll just give you like his overall thinking on this and how he gets to this conclusion. He says that there's a mitzvah to settle the land, to expand Israel's control and sovereignty over parts of the land of Israel. So he says, the Ramban says it's a mitzvah. So because that's a mitzvah to be establishing ourselves as a nation, not just like spiritually, but as a physical nation in the land, so that's a mitzvah, so therefore there's sanctity in that. And he says with that comes everything that accompanies it. So just as nations have symbols that express not just their spiritual existence, but their physical and material existence, so too we have that as well, and therefore it's part of this collective mitzvah of selling the land as a nation. But how does he address the question? Well, isn't this still mimicking the non-Jewish nations, something that you're not supposed to do? His answer to that is, they're mimicking us. How did he get to that? Because he says, look in our Parshat, Bamidbar, chapter 2, verse 2. It says, Ish al diglo beotot leveit avotam yachanu bnei Israel mineged saviv lo mohed yachanu. Everybody encamped in the encampments in the desert. In the beginning of our travels to the desert started, they all had their own flag in the desert in their encampments. So they would camp all around the Mishkan. As they traveled through the desert, each tribe had their own flag. Rashi says each had their own color. And the Midrash says, Rav Tzvi Kook doesn't bring this, the Midrash says that, how do we get to that place that we wanted flags? He says that Bnei Israel saw at Har Sinai that the angels were all standing with flags around Har Sinai. So Am Yisrael says, we want that too. So Hashem granted it to them. And so we have flags as we encamped around the Mishkan, which is symbolic of Har Sinai. And so if you ask Rav Tzvi Kook, who's mimicking whom? They're mimicking us. This came all the way from the Torah that we had these flags. So therefore, because it's that precedent and the fact that this is an expression of our national redemption and our a strong physical sovereignty over the land and all the symbols that come with that, it's a positive thing. He doesn't just say that. He says that, and I wouldn't say this. He says this. He says there's kedusha. He says there's kedusha shamamash. There's actual holiness that we can attribute to the flag. Because of this reason, because it's connected to this whole positive mitzvah of settling the land and assuming sovereignty over the land. So he says, he ends with saying that we have to have gratitude for all the great things. This is all like one paragraph. It's like all packed in here. But he says we have to have gratitude for God helping us return to the land. And he says only through us establishing ourselves below in Jerusalem we'll be able to establish the Jerusalem of above, which is like a spiritual reality, improving the spiritual world for everybody. So on this Yom Yerushalayim, we have a lot to be grateful for Yerushalayim, for Eretz Yisrael, and the flag is one means of symbolizing that and celebrating that.